hello. Welcome back to Season 5 of Porcelain Peak, your favorite strange and scary podcast featuring Chop Talk trivia and deep dive main discussions into the odd and unusual.
Odd.
I am one of your hosts, Tone, and I'm joined by...
John.
And...
Unusual. Internet darling Anthony.
Right on. This week, we are going to share some news about the reboot of the Twilight franchise, which is pretty crazy.
What?
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
we're going to play trivia.
Okay.
I believe you're coming off a win, right?
Yeah, I think I have a two peak streak.
A streaking.
Wow. And then for our main discussion, we are wrapping up Planet of the Apes and talking about the original Planet of the Apes.
So sad. Goodbye, Apes. It's been a good run.
Yes. So stay tuned for that, and we'll get started with that Chop Talk.
Why don't you take an axe and chop it open?
Before we dive into that news, how are you guys? Been a good week?
It's been a pretty good week, yeah.
Yeah, I came to a realization this week that my life it's been whatever. It's been 30 years of kind of whatever. Been some ups, been some downs. But I'm like, I don't feel like I'm really getting the returns out of life that I expected by 30 years. So I actually have sold the rights to my life to Warner Brothers, and they have announced a reboot as of today of the internet darling Anthony life.
But they're making their TV show.
Yeah, we're gonna.
Who the casting is you?
I've been, of course, going for Andrew Garfield. For whatever reason, they really want Chris Pratt.
It's weird because they're both older than you.
Yeah, at one point they.
Yeah, but they play like didn't Andrew Garfield just play like a 16-year-old?
Yeah, at one point they mentioned Kevin Spacey, and then they were like, "Well, what about Christopher Plummer?" And I was like, we don't need a whole all the money in the world situation." But
So in the reboot of your life, who plays me?
I'm gonna have to. I have to keep all casting announcements under wraps as of this time. I haven't been given the green light on any of that stuff, but I will say we're eyeing Pee Wee Herman himself for you, John, because we know how much you love to jerk it in public movie theaters.
Yeah, in a movie theater.
Dude, it's irritating now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why we didn't tell you that we're going to see Evil Dead Rise tomorrow.
Yeah, by the time you're hearing this, Evil Dead Rise will have been out for a couple days, and we will have already watched it.
I just hope that something else rises.
Mm-hmm.
On my body.
Popcorn buggy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was your week?
Mine's been good. Yeah, my yard was a disaster, as you guys know, so I got that cleaned up, and
it wasn't bringing all the boys,
It was not. Yeah, I wasn't blowing them hard enough. But I have a lavender bush, and it's fucking. You know what I mean? And it's full of bees. So I was trying to tame it, but I was going like snap, and I'm like running, and like snap, and then running, and I didn't get stung. So
You're like
And that's how we segue into this week's sponsor, Manscaped.
what's the profession
Gardener.
oh,
for bees?
for bees?
Bee-inator. The Wicker Man. Beekeeper.
Yeah, be keeping these nuts in your mouth.
Oh, damn. Let's move on.
Just because I wanted to give the people the right information, it is an apiarist.
Oh, apiarist? Apes?
Oh,
shit.
it's cyclical like time.
All connects.
Are you happy?
Yes.
Okay.
So, got some news.
Some news. Twilight
None of it's going to blow you away, but yeah.
making a show.
In the continued saga of Hollywood, studios are creatively bankrupt. Right on the heels of the Harry Potter franchise reboot, we are getting a Twilight reboot, which, there's not much to say here. If you want more of what Twilight's putting out, you could watch Vampire Diaries or the other million things that aped off of Twilight and had several seasons and, did the whole thing. I just don't really, similar to our discussion about the Hill House sequel, where is there room to expand in interesting ways in any of this?
Well, I can kind of see it stretching out a Harry Potter thing to be a show because those books get pretty long. But how do you expand this more? Like a whole season is going to be one book, presumably, or less. and it just doesn't seem like there's enough meat on those bones to stretch it out beyond kind of what it was. Because I feel like the movies did a fairly decent job.
Yeah, and I also think the timing of like, so those books started coming out and the hype on those was huge. So right at the exact right time, they were like, cool, cast the movie, get the movie into production, drop the movie. So then, the books were coming out along with the movies, and there was this whole hype cycle similar to Harry Potter, where the books were still coming out as those movies were coming out. So it was this, we keep using the word cyclical this episode, but
it's like an Ouroboros. It's a snake eating its own tail.
Yeah, and with these things, it's like all of it just feels to me like you waited too long to do this. Where is the interest? And who is still hyped about Twilight?
Either you waited too long or you haven't waited long enough, where it's like now it's not nostalgic for anybody. I don't think
nobody's forgotten the Twilight movies.
Of
still
these
in discussion,
of these franchises, the ones that I think actually would probably work the best in a TV format are the Hunger Games franchise. I feel like you could make you could just have everything be like almost real time as it's taking place.
Those are also books that I felt had way more interesting detail in them than the movies ever showed.
Yes.
And that was part of what I
100%.
didn't like as much about the movies, is that they were way, to me, watered down versions of like all of the detail about how this whole world worked and everything. So yeah, I agree that seems like one that definitely would deserve a TV series, but they're just making another Hunger Games movie.
Yep.
Not a reboot, but
it's the
prequel
prequel
book or whatever. Yeah.
snakes and
Snakes and planes.
Yeah,
a song,
snakes
a
and
ballad
ladders.
of snakes on planes.
The other one would be the Maze Runner franchise. I feel like that one also, there's a lot of details in those books that could be expanded out to a series.
Also, those are both examples of franchises that I don't feel like really had successful runs. Like the Maze Runner, I don't think
they got all three made.
I know, but like those movies didn't really make a whole ton of money, and they weren't really big star-making vehicles for any of those people. Unlike Twilight, which was a star-making vehicle for I almost said Edward Cullen, but for Pattinson and for Stewart. Mm-hmm. Harry Potter, obviously being a star-making vehicle for all of those, most of those kids.
I think Hunger Games brought a lot of eyes to Jennifer Lawrence.
Oh yeah. No,
but she already had an Oscar under her belt at that point.
Fair.
Yeah. I think along the same lines, though, I think the Percy Jackson franchise could be a
well,
series,
they
and they
are.
Yeah, which I'm excited about, because those movies fucking went nowhere. They're supposed to do 5, and they couldn't even get past 2 because nobody cared.
Yeah, it's like take something that maybe didn't, because there have been a million examples of that where it's like somebody tried to adapt something, it didn't come out the way that the fans really liked, or that maybe the original creator really liked, and they're like, cool, we're gonna take another shot at it. Up until recently, I don't think that J.K. Rowling had anything bad to say about those Harry Potter movies. Like, I think they...
Oh, is she going back on saying shit about them now?
Well, I mean, anything she says now is absolutely fucking insane, except she has recently said that she equates trans activists to Death Eaters, which made me really happy because I can finally reclaim my dark mark and not be embarrassed about it, because I'm like, yes, I am an activist for trans people. I do support them.
You should put a little trans flag at the bottom.
Yeah, I totally would. If that's the new signifier for it in her mind, then I'm all for it. But anyway, let's get off of this news because it's dumb and we don't like it. Well, speaking of franchises that continue to somehow trudge on and find new life, Warner Brothers and Legendary Pictures put out a little teaser today and officially announced Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire is the long-awaited sequel to Godzilla vs. Kong, which we covered during the pandemic because it was one of the
HBO
drops for HBO, and I think we were kind of lukewarm on it. Thought it had some cool visuals, but overall not
make a lot of
anything
fucking
great.
sense.
But the end was fun.
Yeah, so this is slated for a March 15th of 2024 release.
Oh, wow.
It
My birthday.
is apparently Godzilla and Kong are going to have to team up against crazy, an even bigger, scarier threat. From the teaser, it looks like a giant orangutan, which based on what we've been talking about recently, yeah, I'd be very interested to see what that's all about, but that's happening.
I mean, there's only so much Earth. Like,
yeah.
How are all these monsters just hiding in it?
They're in the hollow part of the hollow Earth.
All right, then.
Well,
Did they already do Ghidorah in that franchise?
I don't think so.
King Ghidorah? I think he was in
Was
is it King of the Monsters?
Maybe.
With the 3 heads? Is that Ghidorah?
Yeah, I think that's Ghidorah.
Yeah, he's like the big bad of that one.
So they basically took away their biggest potential villain super early.
Well, yeah, because in the first one, the reason that they have those Mutos is because they couldn't get the rights to use any other monsters outside of Godzilla, so they had to invent their own monsters. Then they finally got the rights to use other monsters, and were like, well, we might as well just blow our load in King of the Monsters with Mothra, Rodan, and King Ghidorah.
I did not remember that movie.
It's by the guy who did Trick or Treat and Krampus.
Weird.
Michael Dougherty.
It's half decent.
Yeah, I enjoyed it when I
Is that the
saw
one
it.
with 11?
Yeah, Millie Bobby Brown.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, speaking of movies that are being turned into TV shows, Galaxy Quest, we talked about this on the show.
Yeah.
A movie that we all enjoy, is getting a TV series. So the movie about a fake TV series is now getting a real TV series.
This has been in the news for a while that this was in talks.
And I don't know from this news if it's going to involve any of the original people. I don't think Tim Allen has anything better to do, but I do think that Sigourney is probably just busy making a million more Avatar movies. So who knows about that?
Busy voicing the voice of the aquarium and in the next Finding Nemo movie.
Yeah.
No, she actually did that.
Yeah.
Like, she is the voice of that aquarium. They just got the audio from it. Like, she just...
Oh, in real life, she's the voice
Yeah.
in, like, Sydney or whatever?
Yeah.
That's cool. And Rickman's unfortunately passed, so he won't be involved. But I think it would actually be really funny, but they've already done this with something like the Orville. But I was like, ooh, they should have put this out a few years ago and had it be, like, just the TV show from the movie. Yeah, like, do it as kind of a goofy parody of Star Trek. But the Orville already kind of stole that thunder. I talked about this with you guys in text, but right on the heels of Renfield, Universal was like, well, we're not putting all of our Dracula chips in
Voyage of the Dawn Treader.
Yeah, so and we actually had this as a trivia question recently. What was the name of the ship that Dracula was on? And this one is based on the book version, which is The Last Voyage of the Demeter.
I think it's Demeter.
I would say Demeter. But who knows with those Greek shits.
It is directed by the guy who did Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Based on the trailer, it looks a lot more straightforward, spooky. Basically, he's saying it's Alien on a ship. Alien period piece on a ship. But it is about that little section of Dracula where he's going from Transylvania to London on the ship, and he eats all the people on the ship. So you already know how this movie's going to end. But... yeah.
So you got to make the ride enjoyable.
And Javier Botet, who has been a lot of our, outside of Doug Jones, is like the other premier creepy, skinny, long dude. He is playing Dracula, and he looks like a nice spooky monster Dracula.
He looks more Nosferatu-esque.
Yeah, if Nicolas Cage wasn't really your cup of tea as Dracula, don't worry, you're getting another version in a few months.
Renfield?
No, not yet, and I don't have anything against it. I want to see it. I just haven't gotten out to it.
I thought it was fun. Cage was great in it.
Yeah, no, I've been in love with that idea since I first heard about it. So.
Yeah,
we got to Regal does the mystery movies. We got to see Sisu. Have you seen that? It's like a World
that the
War
John
II
Wick one?
Yes. Yeah, it's very much like a World War II John Wick with some Mad Max thrown in, and then like a little bit of Fast and Furious.
You guys liked it?
I enjoyed it. Yeah, I think it reminded me so much of John Wick, but just not as well done. Like the choreography wasn't there, and it just didn't have the same pacing and like sustaining power as John Wick does, especially that first one. But I think it was a good time. Yeah,
Like-
I don't know when it comes out actually, but
I think it's like 2 or 3 weeks, but like it really captures like the legend part
yeah.
of like how like he's Baba Yaga and all this other shit. Like,
But this one, what do they call him? The Immortal.
yeah, the immortal one.
It's like, oh yeah,
Yeah, I saw the trailer for it before John Wick, so
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, looks like more John Wick.
Yeah,
pretty much. I think we've gone on record saying John Wick kind of ruined action movies for a while.
There was some pretty gruesome stuff in this one though.
yeah.
Well, much like The Matrix, it'll just be one of those trend-setting action movies where everybody's like, well, we got to get the best hand-to-hand fight choreography and, all this stuff. Insidious.
Chapter 6? 5?
5? It was originally called Insidious Fear the Dark. It has now been retitled Insidious, The Red Door. And will be released.
Going to the demon?
They are, and it will be released everywhere July 7th of this year.
Oh, shit.
That's very soon.
What?
Trailer came out today.
What?
I watched it before I came over here, and I got to tell you guys, I'm pretty fucking pumped.
And this is the one that's directed by Patrick Wilson?
Yeah. So everybody's coming back. Rose Byrne is back in the trailer.
What?
The little boy is now a grown-up boy.
Dalton,
he's back. Other brother that nobody cared about is back. Sister's not a baby anymore. Patrick Wilson, obviously back. Lipstick Face Demon, he back. But yeah, from what I saw of the trailer, it's keeping in the style of the other Insidious movies, but amping everything up. It looks like there's going to be a ton of fog, ton of further, ton of red doors, ton of lipstick demon. But
Ton of fog.
I really like this premise and that we're bringing it back full circle because I just have a very emotional attachment to the first Insidious, and I really like the second one. And I was like, let's bring it back to Patrick Wilson's family.
Because 3 and 4 aren't super related, right? Like loosely.
No,
The Elise character becomes the through line in those movies as opposed to
it's like set prior to the events of
the Lambert family.
Yeah, the Lambert family.
But yeah, so in this one, the kid is going off to college to be an art student, which I was like, ooh, man after my own heart, which I liked as like a, because he was drawing all the pictures, which all little kids do, but he, was like, cool, now he's an artist. And Patrick Wilson is like starting to have some PTSD type like weird experiences, and he knows something's up, but their memories got erased at the end of the second one. Spoilers. And so he is driving Dalton to college, and it looks like they are both going to have to team up together to figure out what is still following them. And from what it looks like, they're going to be actually going after this demon, because in the trailer they're like, okay, there's only one way to solve this, and then it's them together in the further at the red door about to go through and see what's on the other side. Yeah. But I'm into it.
That's how I solve everything.
Yeah.
2 questions.
Do you have any fucking Percocet?
Don't touch my fucking Percocet. So is Leigh Whannell going to be in it?
He wasn't in the trailer, and because of the time period of this, because this is the first one that's actually, I think, Sense 2 that's actually jumping forward in time instead of going back, because they wanted to bring Elise back for the other ones. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I'm curious. He wasn't in the trailer. His name popped up a bunch at the end, but that's because it's all based on his characters and his story.
Question 2. Do we think if he is in it, that his acting has improved over the years?
I would think because he's directed a couple movies since then that maybe he spent enough time around legitimate actors that he might have picked up a few tips.
I think in 2, because his character's Windows, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think in 2 he's not as bad.
Well, and also he'll be having a fellow actor directing him as opposed to his best friend directing him. So there may be assuming he's in the movie and they care that much to be like, yeah, your character, because they probably don't think his character sucked in the previous ones.
Yeah.
And I don't think he sucked, but not my favorite part of those movies.
Yeah.
But they
hopefully he's busy working on some other Universal Monster shit.
Yeah, the biggest thing for that everybody's gonna be real excited about is the return of Tiny Tim, because the trailer makes good frequent use of Tiptoe Through the Tulips throughout the entire thing. So there you go.
Nice.
There's that. In our bonus episode, we talked about Hell House LLC 2: The Abaddon Hotel.
The Deuce.
The Deuce.
In more ways than one.
Yes.
And we also briefly mentioned there, but I'll bring it up here again in the regular episode. Hell House LLC Origins has officially begun filming. It is going to be a prequel to the other Hell House movies. Check out our bonus episode if you want to hear our thoughts on whether we think that needs to happen or not.
Could be kind of cool because they did mention the house or the hotel being this sort of H.H. Holmes style like maze. So maybe they go back to when
if it's like a
Tully
period piece, yeah,
running things, and it's like, let's see the hotel before like the collapse,
or maybe allow the span to run a little longer than just like the space of like a couple of weeks or whatever.
Maybe don't even do found footage.
Yeah, I wouldn't be mad about it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Pretty tired of found footage after we did a whole month of it.
I would be on board with that. I know that that's not usually successful when franchises kind of switch that around, but
if the idea is good enough and
yeah.
Then I don't think people are going to care that much. Ari Aster, we're big fans, right?
Mm-hmm.
We'll see if we're still big fans after we all see Beau is Afraid.
Boo!
Potentially that may be something where we'll have seen it by the next time we record.
Possibly.
Who knows? Depends
when
on
does that come out? The 20th?
This weekend.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I was like, really? You're going to put out that movie and Evil Dead on the same weekend, you motherfuckers?
That might be why they're not going like full wide either, and they're only going to smaller or like to larger showing rooms.
Yeah. Well, according to his cinematographer, Mr. Ari Aster's cinematographer, who he's worked with on all of his films, Pavel Pogorzelski, he has confirmed that Aster's next film is going to start shooting this summer. So
wow.
That's pretty fucking quick. And it's going to be called, as of now, Eddington, and it's being described as a Western noir dark ensemble comedy. So Astor's just doing whatever the fuck he wants now. Good for him. That's cool. That does seem pretty quick to be hopping into the next thing. But we had talked about this in a previous week. He's going to be working with Joaquin again, so it seems like that's going to be the new team up.
From what I've heard, like early reviews, like I haven't looked at a lot of like regular people or regular critics or anything like that. But Martin Scorsese gave it a very glowing review for Beau is Afraid. So
that's all you need.
Yeah, that's all I need.
I'm sure that's all Astor needs to just be like, cool,
Yeah.
I'll never have to make another movie again.
Scorsese's like, hey, you find an actor and just team up with him for a while.
Yeah.
And Astor was like, okay. It's Joaquin.
Yeah. I mean, you couldn't pick very many better ones.
You could not.
Oh, Charlie Day has a movie coming out.
Mario.
Besides Mario. A movie it's his directorial debut.
Ooh.
I think it's called Fool's Paradise. It's about a guy who, I haven't seen the trailer, but I've just heard about it on a podcast I was listening to. It's about a guy who is released or escapes from a mental institution and ends up, he's like the doppelganger, looks exactly like some big Hollywood actor dude, so he gets like mistaken for him and roped into this movie and becomes like some big sensation.
Oh shit.
And it's apparently very like Buster Keaton influenced. Ray Liotta's in it, so a surprise another Liotta movie for us to enjoy outside of Cocaine Bear. So I was excited to see that or hear about that.
Yeah, that sounds cool. I like Charlie Day.
Yeah, me too. Big fan. And then the last bit of news I have is one that doesn't, I think, really affect any of us, but I know a lot of people in the horror community have been talking about it. Netflix has officially announced that this fall they are discontinuing DVDs. That is a thing that a lot of people still do. And a lot of people are upset about it because there is a lot of stuff that is available through Netflix's DVD library that is not available literally anywhere on streaming or really that you can get anywhere else. Like, hidden gem horror stuff and movies that are just really hard to find. Netflix just has a huge DVD library. So a lot of people are bummed because there are some movies that will potentially just not be accessible anywhere. Once this goes away. So kind of sad, but I'm surprised that they've still been doing it for this long. It's been 25 years.
I mean, part of it is that there are so many different communities that get serviced by that particular portion of Netflix that don't have the infrastructure necessary to like prop up a streaming ability.
Yeah, they like live between two big hills or something. I had a friend like that once. He literally like his house was like out in Podunks past Oakdale in the country, and he lived between two hills. And those two hills just made it fucking impossible for them to have decent internet.
Well, yeah, one hill's owned by AT&T, the other one's owned by Xfinity, and then the ground in between's owned by Charter, so you can't get any cables in anywhere.
And the whole thing's on a Native American burial ground.
Our pets' heads are falling off.
But that's all I got for news this week. Yeah, pretty slow news week, but we didn't have, Max announcing a bunch of new shit or Disney announcing a bunch of new shit. Apparently The Mandalorian concluded today.
Oh shit.
Final episode.
I forgot.
But I haven't checked it out yet. So
Neither.
maybe we'll give a little side review next week of our thoughts on this season of The Mandalorian.
Sounds good. And we'll go ahead and get started with some trivia.
That Christmas house of wax, the fog, piranha. It's one of those, right?
We're going to jump right in and get started with the Trivial Pursuit Horror Movie Edition. How it'll work, if you're unfamiliar, is we'll read a category and then go around in a circle, reading that question to each other, with me to John, John to Anthony, and Anthony back to me.
And this is the dead serious edition. No nonsense. We're
Okay.
not fucking around with songs. We're not fucking around with extra trivia. Just ask the man his gosh dang question.
John, what's the first category before I get yelled?
It's freaking bats. We all know this. We've done this
Monster.
a million times.
Monster.
All right, your question for the monster category is, what is the Maine, M-A-I-N-E, town in which It, from 2017, is set?
That would be Derry.
That is correct.
Didn't we have a dairy question last week? Because I made some joke about being lactose intolerant.
This is a no-nonsense episode, so I can neither confirm nor deny that.
Well, yeah, I was just asking like in a research sense. Hey, no laughing. This is the serious
I'm so sorry.
trivia. Rein it in.
Anthony, what director made both Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1956 and Dirty Harry from 1971?
Oh, you son of a bitch.
Dirty Harry is, you got to ask yourself, right? Is that the one?
You gotta ask yourself, do you have any fucking Percocets?
Well, do you?
Punk. Damn. Who directed Invasion of the Body Snatchers
That's the movie, though, right?
and
Yeah.
Dirty Harold?
And that's one of the most misquoted movies.
Yeah. Because I think a lot of people say,
Do you feel lucky?
"Do you feel
punk?
lucky?" But he's saying you got to ask yourself, "Do I feel lucky?"
And they usually put punk there, but he asks punk. He says punk at the end. Well,
Yeah.
do ya? Punk.
Haven't seen any of those movies. I'll have to watch them at some point.
I had a sticker on my Trapper Keeper back in the day of Dirty Harry pointing a gun, and it said, "Do you feel lucky, punk?" on the bottom. It was something I got at the fucking bowling alley when I was way too young and did not get the reference.
And it was wrong, apparently.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna take a wild guess and say Frank Lynn Franklin.
Hey, no bits. We're not allowed to do bits here.
Wow.
It's-
Hey, the internet dolly does whatever he wants.
That was a very serious answer, and I would appreciate it if you tell me if I'm wrong or not.
It's Don
Bluth.
Cheadle.
It's Don Siegel.
Okay. Tone in Night of the Living Dead from 1968. Just Night of the Living Dead from 1968 was the debut of what filmmaker?
George Romero.
Ooh, gonna have to be a little bit more specific than that.
George Romero.
You got it, nailed it.
How many weeks in a row are we gonna get a fucking just a question where the answer is George A. Romero?
At least it wasn't like, what color is Night of the Living Dead from 1960?
What monochromatic style is
Yeah.
Fucking stupid, dude. All right, so John and I got one, and Anthony not on the board yet, and we're moving into
Gore/disturbing?
Talk to me so mean about it.
John. What was an ingredient used in The Thing from 1982 for creature effects? Was it microwaved bubblegum, creamed corn, toothpaste, or mayonnaise?
Chemical X.
That's so weird. I was gonna say the same thing. And my sister was watching the Powerpuff Girls the other night.
The old school? I like the new shit.
The old school one.
Nice.
Apparently it's all on Netflix now.
For now.
That's pretty tight.
The City of Townsville.
Can you read the options again for me?
Yes.
Microwave bubblegum,
Yep.
mayo,
Yep.
and two other things.
Creamed corn and toothpaste.
I'm gonna go with the first one.
Microwaved bubblegum?
Yes.
That is incorrect. It is toothpaste.
I'm shocked they didn't just. I'm shocked there wasn't an option E, which was all of them.
I know, right?
You mean you didn't notice and admire the Thing creature's pearly whites? That Crest 3D white?
Yeah, he's pretty vicious, but god damn, his teeth are glowing.
Best teeth in the fucking game.
Glowy ass teeth. Anthony, The Void from 2016 was largely influenced by what H.P. Lovecraft novella?
Well, I really like this movie, but I don't know specifically what H.P. Lovecraft novella they would say they were inspired by. I'm going to say At the Mountains of Madness.
At the Mountains of Madness is the correct answer.
Nice, buddy.
And that was close because I was going to guess Shadow over Innsmouth, and I would have been wrong. Tone, for your eyeball zone question, in the Hellraiser series from 1987 to, it says 92 here, in what world war was the former human self of Pinhead a British Army captain?
Oh, I have not seen enough of these movies. We show him human at some point, huh?
Which World War? So you got...
Is that what it said?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh.
Yeah, so you got a 50-50. It's either WWI or WWII.
WWII.
I'll say 1.
You fucking nailed it, dude. He was a human boy in World War One.
For the lead, you little bitch.
Oh, shit. So I got twosies, and you
Yeah.
guys got onesies, and we're
You got double I?
2. E the law.
Psychological.
Psychological. Okay, John. Psycho from 1960 was an adaptation of the novel of the same name by what author?
I don't fucking know.
Pay attention to your friend.
Huh?
Definitely don't look anywhere in the room.
I'm going to use all my resources.
Cheater, pumpkin eater. It's right fucking there. Stop looking.
I don't see it.
For the viewing public.
I don't know if you can read that far, buddy. He's going to have to put his hand up to his eye and make it focus.
Well, I'm just going to Google the answer to my next question then.
I can't read that far. Shit. I wish I could read that far. I can see the title. I don't know.
Alfred Hitch Pussy.
Marion Crane.
It is Robert Bloch. Oh, you blockhead.
Can you see now? Robert Bloch.
Nope, still can't see it. It's too far.
Yeah, that is pretty far.
Well, that's a bummer.
You had every chance in the world, bud.
I did. It was right in front of me,
I was
literally.
going to say, it was literally, yeah.
Anthony, what David Lynch film was originally filmed as a television pilot?
Mulholland
It is
Drive.
indeed Mulholland Drive.
Nice.
Would have been very interested to see what that would have looked like as a full TV show. But as a
Nonsense, literal nonsense.
movie, it's the dope. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Tone, for your brainworms question, what scene in The Descent from 2005 was edited for theatrical release in North America? The opening or the ending?
The ending.
It was indeed the ending. The full original ending was restored in the unrated cut DVD release. There's one ending where... Well, I won't spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it.
Yeah.
But I think we had a mix-up because of watching it in different places. Oh, I was showing somebody The Descent and it ended with the wrong ending, and I was really mad because I was like, that's not the ending I saw. That's way better. So I had to go hunt down on YouTube the alternate ending and show it to them and be like, this is how it should have ended.
We had another movie that we covered on here where the only one we were able to find was the director's cut version, and we had to go back and look up the old ending from the theatrical cut.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was because I don't remember a single thing we say or do on the show after we've done it. So.
But either way, 3, 2, 1, and we are going into paranormal.
John The Conjuring, 2013. Or in that movie, what is the name of the entity tormenting the Perrin family?
The entity? So you said, is this what Conjuring movie is this? The first is? The?
Yeah.
the first or the second?
The Conjuring.
Not The Devil Made Me Donuts.
All right, so The Conjuring, the entity.
Entity? This is no fucking nonsense trivia, man. Okay? This isn't David Lynch trivia. Although it quite literally was David Lynch trivia.
Oh God, what is this? What's the entity called?
Entity.
Oh, I'm just striking out today. The Clapping Ghost.
That is incorrect.
Is it Bathsheba Sherman?
It's Wallaby Way. It is Bathsheba.
Yeah.
Yeah. You ain't taking a shower, baby. You're taking a Bathsheba.
Splish splash, I was taking a Bathsheba.
Oh, speaking of musicals,
Yeah.
I watched The Little Shop of Horrors, the remake, for the first time this week.
The Rick Moranis?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was fantastic.
Pretty awesome,
Yeah.
right?
It's crazy, though, because it's a remake of a Roger Corman movie, and it feels still like a Roger Corman movie.
Yeah, I still haven't seen the original because most people are just like, oh, the remake is a million times better. But so I always find it really weird when there'll be a movie and they'll make a musical version of it, and then they make a movie of that musical version.
Yeah. I mean,
It's fantastic though.
There's a lot of musicals based on movies. Like I saw Beetlejuice. There's Legally Blonde. There's Mean Girls, and I'm like, I wonder what movie versions of those would be like. I think Phantom of the Opera is like that too, right?
Yeah, because the original wasn't a musical. And there's a really good American Dad parody episode with a hot tub instead of a giant plant.
With a hot tub?
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
hot tub is voiced
Dip
by
the
CeeLo
toe.
Green. Yeah.
All right, right on.
Anthony, at all the footage in the Blair Witch Project from 1999 is meant to come from how many cameras used by the backpackers?
It's 2, right? There's the one that's in color, and there's the one that's not in color with
In
sound.
what monochromatic style?
Yeah, I think it's 2 cameras.
It is indeed 2 cameras.
Sweet.
Nice.
Tone. In your is this paranormal?
Yes.
In your paranormal question, what is the name of the character shot by Vincent Gray in the opening of The Sixth Sense from 1999?
Paranormal nuts in your mouth.
Also, well, I won't say anything, but you got to get the full name.
Is it something like Freak, like Ben Freak or something like that?
I mean,
I think it's Freak. They call me Freak or something. I don't know.
okay. Is that your guess? Is
Sure.
that your final answer?
Yeah, Ben Freak.
The answer is Dr. Malcolm Crowe.
Oh, what am I thinking?
I don't know.
What? Read it again.
So the question was, what is the name of the character shot by Vincent Gray in the opening of The Sixth Sense? Dr. Malcolm Crowe is Bruce Willis's character.
So I'm thinking the person that shoots him.
Yeah.
Like they call me Freak.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
something.
He
Okay.
walks into his house
I see.
yeah, and you don't know that he's been killed until the end of the movie.
Whoa! Hey!
Whoa,
Hey!
shit!
Whoa, hey! All right. Well, shit.
Poop.
Moving into Killer.
Indeed, it is killer.
What's the score? You got 1,
Yes.
and he's got 3,
Yes.
and I got 3.
Yes.
Fuck yeah! All right, John. In the Nightmare on Elm Street series, Amanda Kruger is what? A school teacher, a nurse, a nun, or a police officer? Amanda Krugs. Hey, Krugs.
Man Krugman.
Can we read the options again?
Yeah. School teacher, nurse, nun, or police officer?
Which kind of Barbie is she?
I'm going to say nurse.
Ooh, she's a nun, and she gets raped
Raped by 1,000 maniacs.
I
inmates.
ain't getting none as far as these answers. Anthony.
It's the nun.
This one's always a fun one. What are the name of the 7 deadly sins that are depicted through murders in Seven?
I was trying to think about these
gosh.
the other day. I find these. I try to keep
It's
myself on my toes.
envy,
Yep.
pride,
Yep.
wrath,
Yep.
gluttony,
Yep.
3 more.
envy, pride, wrath, gluttony, lust.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. 2 more. 2 more.
Did I say greed already?
No, you did not. That's another one.
Okay, greed and
One more.
sloth.
Yeah.
Sloth is the last one.
Yes. I was also trying to think of characters in Full Metal Alchemist.
Yes.
After?
Sloth is what a pain.
Yeah, and then I was also like trying to think of the different kills and how they fit. Tone. Really weird that we were just talking about this. What was the name of the actor who played the titular Phantom in The Phantom of the Opera from 1925?
What's the name of the actor?
Mm-hmm. Who played the Phantom?
Good luck, brother.
Hilariously parodied in the smash hit Gremlins 2, : The New Batch.
The noob atch.
The Batch is back.
I don't know. Claude Rains.
It was Lon Chaney Sr.
Oh, that makes sense. Dang it!
No, it was Claire Danes.
Clear day. I was this close to winning. You know.
You still got time.
No, I watched it slip away already. I only got 3, and he's got 4.
Yeah, you can still tie.
Right? Yeah, and we're moving into international, John. Right?
We are moving into international.
John in The Wailing, 2016, villagers attribute the supernatural affliction to a stranger from what Asian country?
Don't worry, when we get to W in the roulette, I'll be putting this on the wheel.
Yeah.
So
The Wailing Wheel.
The Wailing Wheel.
and this is the sequel to The Whale, where they go after him.
It's the sequel that came out before. I'm going to say that they are from China.
It is Japan.
I just went with where the most populace is. I was like, if it's gonna be anywhere,
Yeah, my
gonna be one of-
odds are high. Yeah,
it's gonna be one of the 3 billion people that live in China. Tough week for me. Anthony, in Goodnight Mommy from 2014, which of the twin brothers is revealed to be dead? Elias?
What?
these
or
are very
Lucas?
spoilery cards. By
Yeah.
the way.
Dang.
What were the options?
Elias or Lucas?
Elias or Elias? She had one that she liked him so much, she had another one.
I don't know. 50-50. Lucas.
It is Lucas.
Shit, dog.
That is a shit dog.
Tone, the director of Ringu from 1998, made his English language debut with what 2005 film?
Ooh, I feel like we've talked about this.
We have, because we talked about Ringu and The Ring
Jeepers, mister.
in our Ringu episode.
Jeepers, mister. I was going for innocence.
I can't remember. I don't want to waste any more time. He did...
Freddy got fingered.
Don't tell Mom the babysitter's dead.
Oh, so close. He did The Ring too.
Oh.
Yeah, Hideo Nakata directed the sequel to the American remake of his original film.
Weird.
Yeah, and I remember The Ring 2 being real bad.
And wasn't there a Ringu 2, but then also, like, they didn't like that one, so then they remade a second sequel?
Yeah, and for a lot of those, like The Grudge and stuff, there's so many weird spin-off, prequel, beforehand movies that I can never keep track of how those franchises function.
Yeah, because isn't there one that's called, like, Spiral or something?
Yeah, but then there's also a million other Japanese horror movies called Spiral, or Uzumaki, which just means spiral.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Right on. Congratulations.
hey, still
killing
got that
it, bud.
Gorilla Glued crown firmly on my scalp.
You need to wash your hair, though, brother.
Yeah, well,
If you
you're not the
must.
boss of me.
You're not the boss of me
I
now.
heard Cranston's got a new show that's supposed to be really good.
He's been in that
Your
Your
Honor?
Honor for
Yeah.
a while.
Oh, has it been
With
a
a big
while?
ass beard. Yeah, I think they're on like the second or third season.
Oh, shit.
But yeah, I've heard it's good. I like them.
Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for trivia. We're going to take a little break, and then we'll get started with Planet of the Apes.
Join the Creep Cult. $5 a month at patreon.com/porcelain peak for exclusive content, merch discounts, and more. Join the Creep Cult. $5 a month at patreon.com/porcelain peak for exclusive content, merch discounts, and more.
You want to see something really scary?
Welcome back. We are going to kick off the end of Planet of the April, talking about Planet of the Apes from... what year is that?
1968.
Wow, this is the original movie, the one that started it all. So, if you don't know, basic plot of this movie is there are a few people on a spaceship, and they have been gone for like a year and a half Earth time.
Mm-hmm.
But for them, it ends up being 2,000 years.
Oh shit, that's a long time.
Yeah.
I hope everything's exactly the same as they left it.
They
Hope
crash.
they didn't leave the oven on.
They crash land, and soon find out that the planet is run by apes, and one of them is trying to get out of being an animal.
And he wants nothing more than for them to get their stinking paws off of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this movie is based on the Pierre Boulet novel of the same name, but the novel, from what I can tell, I haven't read it. Have you read the original novel?
No, because I don't know French.
Yeah, from what I mean, it is translated into English, but and in the UK as Monkey Planet, but it's
You know I don't speak Spanish.
it's very different than the story that we get in the movie. Rod Serling, in his words, spent like a year and a half, 2 years writing like 40 drafts of this script.
Wow.
And they didn't even end up using his script for this movie. He's
Yeah,
credited as a writer, but they kept like his ending, his twist ending, which feels very Twilight Zone, and then replaced all the dialogue and all the in between stuff.
A lot of it feels like an episode of The Twilight Zone. Even at the beginning, I was like, is that Rod Serling's voice? Because I wasn't watching, I was just listening for a minute.
Well, and the way the setup works with
Yeah.
the crashed spaceship and all the way, that style of that 60s style of acting, and it all feels very Twilight Zone.
Yeah, so Rod Serling is credited as one of the writers. So is Michael Wilson. This one was directed by Franklin J. Schaffner. And stars... Who we got?
Charlton Heston.
Charlton Heston, Roddy McDowell, Maurice Evans, which I'm guessing is why
Yep.
that ape
Why
is
the
named Maurice.
orangutan? Yeah.
Yeah, Kim Hunter, James Whitmore, James Daly, and Linda Harrison.
Yeah. So so our main character Charlton Heston, he is
Astronaut Taylor.
Yeah, astronaut Taylor. He is under the impression throughout the entire movie that they have traveled to a different planet. In the beginning, he talks about how we must be, in a planet in the Orion belt, some number of light years or parsecs or whatever away from Earth.
People on the rest of people on the ship are like, nah, bro, you didn't see them shits.
Yeah, and so we get a really kind of even though we know it's Planet of the Apes and there's going to be apes, we get a nice little kind of slow build up to the reveal of the apes. First, they explore a little bit and everything seems kind of hunky-dory in this desert area. They find like a really lush area with a bunch of vegetation, and they find a bunch of mute kind of feral, basically cave people running around, and they're like, oh shit, this is interesting and crazy. That already feels like a Twilight Zone episode of like, oh, where did these people come from? How did they get this way? And
There's an episode of The Twilight Zone where a ship crash lands, and it is 3 astronauts walking around trying to find out where they are.
Well, and there's an episode that's very similar to this with Roddy McDowell as the main character. Yeah, he had done an episode of Twilight Zone that's very similar, but so they discover this, and then they get ambushed by the apes, and these were images that I think really absolutely fucking blew people's minds, and I've said it repeatedly in our previous Planet of the Apes episodes, but when I was a kid, these used to freak me out. I did not understand the makeup. I could not wrap my head around how they got apes to ride horses and talk and do all this stuff. It didn't make any sense to me. And a lot of people like Matt Reeves talk about how like just the image of an ape riding a horse was enough to like inspire their careers, and there are so many people who have gone on to be like, that's just that image like is indelibly a part of my DNA now. And we just think about it as like, oh, that's Planet of the Apes, that's the bit.
For me, it was Ape Lincoln in the Burton one.
Yeah.
Really inspired me to go nowhere.
Really inspired me to do nothing with my life and career, much like Tim Burton has for the past 20 years.
Yeah, I don't remember if we've talked about this movie on the show before.
We did, because it was someone's miss.
Yeah, I think I had it as a shameful miss in the past.
Yeah, what I wanted to kind of like bring this back around and have a fuller conversation around is having gone back and recently watched the Caesar trilogy. The intent is for these to connect by the end of it. In some, like, it probably to its own version of this movie, but I mean, that's supposed to be the intent, is that it's supposed to eventually get to this point where apes are the dominant species and humans are no longer involved in any of the decision making.
On Earth itself, it has been 800 years, I think they said.
Yeah.
So there is enough time that the people the apes that we know from the Caesar trilogy are going to obviously die.
Yeah.
And so enough time will have passed that it would make sense.
But a lot of the naming conventions are still the same. Like Cornelius is one of them. Maurice. Like there's
Nova.
There's a ton of like.
I mean, I do think that these movies, because they borrow so much from the other movies, you would have to have them lead into a remake of the original, as opposed to like trying to imagine that these lead into the original, because then there's also just very obvious like time discrepancies. I think they mentioned that it was 1972 or something when they left Earth for the mission. You'd have to slide that scale obviously up to 2000 whatever, when 2011 or whenever, when the Icarus shuttle left in Rise of the Planet of the Apes. But
on top of that, like the failing of the planet, the human existence being the dominant existence, is all like, it's all explained sort of in, I think, Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, with their version of Caesar.
Well, and they get
Which
into
is
time
complete-
travel
yeah, it's
and
completely
crazy shit
different.
in those later movies where it's like Caesar ends up being the origin point of the apes taking over the planet because Cornelius and Zira from this movie travel back in time and give birth to him in the past during Charlton Heston's 70s time. And then there's like I haven't seen these movies. I've just read about them, enough times that I know like the basic bit is that, and Roddy McDowall also plays Caesar. And he ends up like apes become enslaved. And then he leads an uprising, and there's similar beats, but it's different enough that like, yeah, they wouldn't lead perfectly, but you can kind of make sense of it.
You can get to this, I think, from where they're at. It's just they're going to have to skip a lot of years to get there. And then I think that kind of what you're hinting at is that they have these other movies as material, and those movies are kind of notoriously not nearly as good as this one, as far as like Conquest and Beneath and Battle and all this other shit, that I think they can remake those too. I mean, they still got a lot of meat on these bones, these 8 bones, that they wanted to do weird shit. Because I think in the next one, there's like superhumans.
That's beneath the planet. Yeah. They come out and they're telepathic abilities or some shit, right?
But then eventually they get to a point where the ape civilization is where human civilization is at the time the movie was made. So they're
battle.
in like clothes and they're like cops. So kind of what Tim Burton was getting at.
Yeah, and in the original
didn't get
novel
executed.
and in Rod Serling's original script for this, the apes were a lot more advanced. In the novel, it's described that they are basically, they dress and act pretty much exactly the same as 20th century people, and they have television and they go to the movies and they have skyscrapers, and it's all very modern. For budget reasons, they were like, nope, let's set them in a more like primitive time so that we can make all the sets like Flintstones looking.
I like that
and stuff.
though.
And
the way that it's set up in this reminds me of what Caesar was doing in this last trilogy, with the way that everything's kind of flat and a lot more organic.
mm-hmm.
Just like the next step of that, instead of using a bunch of wood together, now we have like plaster and stuff. So we've just slowly moved forward over the last 800 years.
The fun part for me was kind of watching this was continuing my train of thought from last week, where I was talking about like how much the existence of humans before the apes took over the planet would have influenced their civilization and their culture. And I was trying to kind of figure out, okay, where in their evolution relative to our evolution would they be? And I did some like research looking into it, because I was like, oh, they've got some stuff that feels very like Stone Age, but then they have the guns, which could just be holdovers from whatever crazy war happened with the humans. That makes the most sense, outside of them still being able to operate thousands of years later. Like, I would think that if they have guns, they must be manufacturing their own.
They also have like a primitive like government body with like this like little tribunal of people who like make the decisions for their group.
Yeah, and the more research I did, the more this kind of the creators, and also like just from what I could see, they're in kind of a Middle Ages going into their Enlightenment sort of period. And you can see that because the way their society is broken up, you have the orangutans are like the conservative political leaders, and then the gorillas are like the police force, brutes, bodyguard types, and then the chimps are like the liberal scientists. And so you have the Cornelius and Zira characters who are trying to explore and learn new things and do archaeology, and they're kind of pushing for, let's find out more about this world. And they're kind of in a dark ages right now, where the upper controlling body is saying like, no, we don't want you to have this knowledge because that will lose control. And, we've built this whole narrative over however many hundreds of years
that humans have always been dumb and never were speaking or were in charge.
Yeah.
And they have these like sacred texts that they want everyone to abide by.
Yeah. And so I did some research into like what the Caesar narrative for these movies ended up being. And there are a lot of parallels in terms of how our Caesar from this reboot trilogy approaches the whole thing. Because the Caesar in the originals, the Roddy McDowall Caesar, he wants humans and apes to be able to live together. And he's very much like, let's bring these two cultures together so that there's no distinction between them. And then after he has his whole uprising and tries everything he can and eventually dies, then many, many years later, this lawgiver comes around and like corrupts the teachings of Caesar and becomes kind of this like deity figure, and is an orangutan. We can see from the statues and stuff. And that seems, and that's what the premise of Kingdom sounds like it's supposed to be, is that there is some new ape leader who is trying to like twist the teachings of Caesar in order to maintain control over like their ape faction or whatever. And so it sounds like these movies are continuing to keep taking cues from the Planet of the Apes to lead it into, I assume at some point in these sequel reboot trilogies we'll get some sort of lawgiver type character.
Laws of the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, but I was really interested in seeing like where they were supposed to be in their timeline and in their evolution. The actual like the sets and stuff I thought were cool. I really enjoyed the outdoor stuff more because I think the outdoor photography in this is gorgeous. All of the desert landscapes look fantastic, and then the makeup in this is pretty good. I mean, you can really tell there is just that stiffness that you really wish they could get a little bit more expression. And I think coming off of...
It's mostly just like mouths open.
Yeah, lots of doing stuff with your eyes and your eyebrows and lots of just trying to move that big mouthpiece around. But I think just coming off of seeing like the raw, pure emotion that they were able to convey with Circus and those remake movies, I had to remind myself, like, okay, they couldn't do that back then.
Societal limitations,
and this is pretty amazing for the time, and the amount of work they put into it is crazy. And it took several hours to apply, and all of the cast and crew members were super uncomfortable, and some of them broke out in rashes, and they had to eat all of their meals through straws because they couldn't fuck up their prosthetics. All of the smokers on set were given cigarette holders so that the smoke and the flame wouldn't get near the highly flammable latex and stuff that they had on their face. But Roddy McDowall, he got really, really comfortable in doing it, which makes sense because he went on to play multiple other ape characters in this franchise. Yeah. He got really comfortable with it and learned, like, oh, if I do a certain tick with my mouth here, a certain thing with my eyes, I can give more expression to it. So he kind of became the de facto like teacher of everyone else on set about how to get the most expression out of the makeup. But I mean, it convinced me as a kid, and as an adult, like I it's not like the whole time I'm just going like, oh, it's a dude wearing a mask. Like you forget about it pretty quickly. But I think just coming off of those other movies, I was just like, oh yeah, I wish they could show a bit more expression. They can't really get angry. It's just a lot of surprise. Yeah, like you said, like surprise or.
I go back to this movie a lot, and I'm always worried that I'm gonna watch it, and one of these days I'm not gonna like it. And then I was really scared of that this time around because we just watched these 3 amazing ape movies, which are all pretty fantastic. And although, like you said, this one is very different in terms of the stylistics or the way that it looks, it's still really good. I had a really good time with it. I think Heston is really funny, kind of a dick, but then you kind of root for him toward the end, and then you do get a lot of cool set pieces. And the whole time I'm like, I wish I didn't know the ending of this movie, and the way that they hint at it and drop little hints throughout the whole thing, it's done so well. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool. And I wish that I could watch this for the first time and be like, oh shit, because they basically tell you throughout the whole thing, like, where are we? This could be this. This could be this.
Like, and there's like little hints throughout the movie that are like, no, this is Earth.
Yeah, and so I love that twist because it feels like an earned twist. It's not just completely out of nowhere. They've been trying to hint at it for the last 2 hours, and it's actually a pretty long movie.
When it's also like your lens to the world is Heston's Taylor, or I mean, I guess if we're talking about lenses, his nickname that he's given by the apes, which is Bright Eyes, which carries on, into
Rise.
So I think that that through his vantage point, I think it's more that he doesn't want to believe the possibility that it could be Earth.
That's what I was going to say.
Pushing it further and further away. So, yeah, it just makes the argument more easy to follow.
And that's surprising, though, because when he's arguing with his fellow astronauts, he's like, everybody is dead. Like, he's such a dick about it, too.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you brought up that point about like him being like he's basically an Egyptian pharaoh in this movie because he's so in denial about this entire situation that he's in.
It's pretty good.
He's so
I'm out.
To me, it makes total sense that the apes, obviously, because they don't know any better and they've been like pretty much brainwashed and told their entire lives that the humans have never been anything but a nuisance that needs to be killed, and they're just like pests and all this. But Heston, I would think that he would immediately start questioning whether he was on Earth or not the second he heard the apes speaking English. And because to me, like if you even think about that for a second, like there's no fucking reason they would be speaking English unless he was on Earth still. Like I don't know. Maybe they could get away with it a bit easier in a 60s sci-fi movie because everything, every Twilight Zone that everybody spoke English. All the aliens always came and spoke English, so maybe they were like. But I looked into it.
Still doing that now. You know what I mean?
In the original version of this script, they were going to speak their own different language that he couldn't understand at first, and through the course of him being imprisoned in the human zoo, he was going to start learning their language, and then the movie was going to do like a Hunt for Red October where we started being able to understand what they were saying, and it would transition into English as he learned their language. And they were like, no, it's just too complicated. We'll just have him speak English. So I think from Heston's point of view, it's got to be a lot of him just being in complete disbelief, confusion, denial about what's happened, that he is able to, that he doesn't immediately go, okay, this is Earth and we've been gone for thousands of years and some shit went down.
And this group of random apes randomly are able to speak the language that we spoke on, like primarily on Earth. And
they're using
like this area.
Guns that he would recognize.
Yeah,
like it's like they're using weaponry. There's horses. Like everything here screams, "You're on Earth, buddy."
Yeah,
yeah.
So, but then I think if you look at it that way, that he's been in denial, it makes his moment at the end with the Statue of Liberty
even more
heartbreaking because It's
Can't
not
deny that.
Yeah, and he's just like finally having to come to terms with the fact that, because really I think what he's been in denial about is that humans could have destroyed themselves and caused this problem, and he's like, oh, something else must have happened. Like he
mentions it could be war. He mentions it could be a virus, which is what is the case now.
Yeah. And
then he mentions that it could be like a meteor shower or whatever.
Yeah, and for him to realize, oh no, we blew ourselves up. Yeah. Even Zig's mad about it. He understands. When he's like, they blew it up and they destroyed themselves, and now the apes, which again aligns with what we've seen in the remake stuff, like spiritually in terms of the way those movies are going, they all stay in line with the general idea of like humans are going to destroy themselves with their own weapons, and then
we 100% are.
Oh yeah. There's no denying it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I liked that on this rewatch. It was less like, oh, that's dumb and unbelievable that he doesn't immediately realize he's on Earth. But to me, it made it more emotionally powerful at the end.
There's also a ton of great social commentary in this. I mean, especially thinking about the time with, with race relations being where they were at that point in time, and with like this move to try to like combine the population, not have like segregation and things like that, and the civil rights movement and everything that was taking place around this time in history. It makes a lot of sense that was in the forefront of this story, and like that, the concept of like the humans being like enslaved and like having experiments and stuff done on them and all these things like coincide with how some parts of history are perceived.
Well, the rich and powerful always keep the people they're stomping on happy by making sure there's always somebody underneath them.
Yeah.
It's how the real world works. It's how this world works. It's very reflective.
How my father did it.
Yeah. That's how the Planet of the Apes does it. And it's worked out pretty well so far.
I think along with the racism stuff, there's also like a classism commentary built into this too.
Yeah, and it's all about how do we... It's very 1984. The whole thing is very George Orwell. There's the 1984 whole like let's basically alter history and change everybody's perception of what history is so that we can keep them under our thumb. And then it's also very Animal Farm with the whole idea of like all apes are equal, but some are more equal than others. And that's directly a line from Animal Farm, like some or all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others, which is like, we may all be equal in ape society, but there are those of us who are in charge and those of us who aren't.
Right.
And it's one of those things where I'm like, it's a question of how much of that comes from some sort of ingrained experience with how humanity works. But I almost feel like with the apes, they kind of have even more, like they have a halfway sort of valid reason outside of the obviously trying to apply this. And I'm not trying to by any stretch of the imagination say humans have any sort of valid reason for doing this. But in the ape segregation, they are in fact different species. It is orangutans, gorillas, chimpanzees, all different species, as opposed to humans, where it's all one species and slight variations in the color of your skin are enough to...
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so I'm like, in this, they actually have a little bit more of a reason to go that route, but I'm, obviously because of the commentary, I'm curious, like, would they have gone that route if they didn't have the human influence from their past?
It's tough to say.
Yeah, so brings up a lot of interesting philosophical questions, and is this an endless cycle where it looks like the apes, because of how they're dividing their own society from within, are going to eventually destroy themselves in the exact same way that we did? And that's part of the whole realization too, I think, of Heston at the end.
I think that's how 2 starts or ends. They like blow up the planet.
Oh, and is that why it's beneath the Planet of the Apes? Because they
It's
like
like
blow
a nuclear
up
bomb, and then I'm pretty sure it explodes, and then they get on a ship.
Explode.
And then it goes to future. I don't fucking know.
Yeah,
The movies are ridiculous.
Yeah, I'd be really interested in watching those sequels. I just know they're not supposed to be as good, and
Even the makeup's not as good.
There's some moments in them that are good. I mean, aside from like Battle's the last one, right? Battle, if I remember correctly, Battle's pretty rough.
But speaking of the segregation and class system, the actors who played the apes actually ended up segregating themselves during breaks and lunches. So all of the orangutan actors would hang out and have lunch together, and all of the chimps would have lunch together. And a lot of it was just down to like they all had different makeup processes and ways they had to do things, and it actually ended up kind of naturally separating them into factions on set. Jerry Goldsmith, who did the music for this, I think the music is fucking fantastic, especially
Yes, I wanted to mention. I was like, holy fuck!
especially
this is
for the
rad.
time period. It is the first completely atonal score in a Hollywood movie, and urban legend has it that he wore a gorilla mask while he was writing and composing it to like get him into the spirit and get in touch with.
Daddy, would you like some apes?
Now, is it a gorilla mask, or is it like the Urban Dictionary version of a gorilla mask? If you know what that is, where you like cut off your pubes and like glue it onto somebody's face or some shit.
That's just a skit in one of the Jackass movies.
Yikes,
Probably.
Yeah. Who brought crabs to the party? Yeah, John. Battle is the last one. It's Planet Beneath, Escape from, Conquest of, and Battle for.
All crazy titles that you would never be able to keep straight. So I guess the remake trilogy has that down pat too, of just titles you can never keep straight in your head. So outside of the music, the makeup in this also, I think, was just a big jumping forward point, because I had to keep reminding myself that this movie came out 10 years before Star Wars and set a lot of the trends in terms of what Star Wars would go on to, like, obviously expertly take advantage of, which is the makeup, the practical makeup effects, shooting out in the desert to get these alien planet exteriors and everything, and also the merchandising. So this was like the first, pretty much the first movie to have a huge multimedia marketing branding campaign where they had Planet of the Apes toys, lunchboxes, commercials, basically anything that you could put Planet of the Apes on, they put Planet of the Apes on. And Star Wars obviously went on to do that to much greater success 10 years later.
Yeah.
And still makes the majority of its money from toys. And
Did 2001 Space Odyssey come out the next year after this? It's 69, right?
I'm not sure.
I don't know. That would be nice, though.
Which is crazy. That would be nice. Yeah.
2001: A Space Odyssey came out the same year,
Holy shit.
1968.
What a year for movies.
I'm not trying to say these effects are shitty by any means, but that movie, pushed. Talk about influential effects in movies.
Yeah. I mean, it literally influenced the space program.
They came out within a month of each other.
Holy
Wow.
cow.
This came out.
What a windfall of fucking movies.
I
That's
would've been
that's
like,
got to be like,
If you're a
that's gotta
sci-fi
be like
fan, this would be a
top 10.
life-changing spring for you, because
Yeah.
in March, Planet of the Apes dropped. In April, 2001: A Space Odyssey dropped.
They really missed out on having it be Planet of the April.
They really did, yeah.
If only they were as clever as us back in
Only they
1968.
knew where it would be going.
But yeah, they even had a Marvel Comics tie-in, which is exactly what Star Wars did.
Wow.
So they were crazy. Also, the makeup budget on this apparently still holds the world record for highest makeup budget. At the time, it was $345,542. Adjusted for inflation is about $2 million.
Jesus.
Which I guess for
Wow.
makeup is pretty insane.
It seemed like it'd probably be pretty high for the Burton one too, because those are practical effects as well.
Yeah, and a little aside here, I did rewatch that this
Did
past
you?
week, and I think I don't fully remember what I said about it the last time I watched it, or if I talked to you guys about it. But
I don't remember hating it, but that was my introduction to Planet of the Apes.
I think it was a lot of people's. It was my first, like, outside of seeing clips of the show and stuff when I was a kid, that was the first Planet of the Apes movie I think that came out while I was alive.
And to not have any background, to be like, well, it doesn't stand up comparatively. I didn't have that, so I was just like, this to me is super cool.
Yeah, and there are parts of it that I think are fucking awesome. I think if you're gonna do the practical apes, Burton and his team did it absolutely, like, fucking fantastic. They did it perfectly. The apes, the makeup is so convincing and also so much more expressive, obviously. So you can really feel the performances of your Tim Roths and your Michael Clark Duncans and your Helena Bonham Carters coming through in these, and I recognized a ton of actors I didn't remember were in the movie. Heston shows up.
Does he?
Yeah, he's the older. He plays Zaius, the orangutan, but like
shit.
old, and he even has a little riff where he like, I think he riffs on the Damn Dirty Apes line or something. But
It's the "Get your hands off me, you damn dirty human" or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
and but so all that stuff's great. Tim Roth, I don't know if it's a stunt double, but they like have him whenever he gets on his horse, he like fucking leaps up onto it like a chimp, and he's always like jumping and climbing, and all the set design, the way that they do the armors and stuff, where it's all like engraved with like the history of it's all super cool. The story just sucks ass, and Mark Wahlberg is a nothing in the movie, and I desperately wanted to take a nap halfway through it. I was like, for how much work obviously went into this and how much artistry is on display, this is such a fucking boring movie.
Really?
I do think the ending twist is pretty fun though.
Yeah.
I'm still a fan of Ape Lincoln.
I still want the sequel, dude.
Abraham.
Yeah.
Abraham Lincoln.
Cute little bits of attention to detail that I put in my notes here that I thought were cool. Charlton Heston Taylor, he taunts Landon. I think it's Landon is the one that we find out ended up being like stuffed and put in the
Lobotomized.
museum. Or no, so yeah, one of them got lobotomized, and then one of them gets like stuffed and put into a museum, and Heston like bumps into him when he's running through the human museum, and I was like, oh, that's fucked up.
I think Landon gets lobotomized.
Yeah, and that makes sense because one of the really clever things I think they do in this movie is they have Heston's character get shot in the neck right at the beginning.
He's mute
So
like
he's
everyone
mute
else.
for a while, and so he is getting to kind of observe this ape society, and they're convinced that he's mute just like the rest of them and an idiot, and he's like trying to communicate by writing on the ground and, doing different
Noah's
stuff.
fucking with it.
And then I love
the-
that the paper plane is the thing that finally convinces it. They're like, oh shit.
But I don't understand. And I'm like, dude, this is so fucking simple. And it clicked with me immediately. She has a pen and paper, and he's like, and I'm like, why don't you mimic writing like that? You want the utensil. And I'm like, are you stupid? Maybe you are stupid.
Well, he is doing a lot of mimicking, and they keep just saying, oh, it's monkey see, monkey do, or human see, human do. Like,
But
he's
why
just-
not? Yeah, I was like, dude, mimic that you want to write.
Because they need this bit to go on for.
I know, but I was just
half
like,
hour
that's
or
so
whatever.
irritating. Like, you are an astronaut, so you have some degree of intelligence.
Yeah, I
would
mean,
think.
it's not as.
But other than that, like, yeah, the tension building of him not being able to speak is great.
And
Yeah.
then it's not. I think that Rise does a better job with Caesar's first no. I think that works better than the reveal being "Get your hands off me, you damn dirty ape."
But if you
Still
take out
pretty cool.
If you take the pop culture aspect of that line out, and you take the fact that it was then reduxed in Rise to better effect, it's still a pretty fucking badass moment when he finally like gets, he has his ability to speak back, and he just finally like cuts loose and screams at him, and they're all just completely shocked, similar to what we talked about in Rise when everybody's just completely shocked by Caesar talking. Same thing here. They didn't think a human could talk, and now he's like, telling them to get their fucking hands off of him. And I do the same thing. But he's taunting, Taylor's taunting Landon when they're traversing the Forbidden Zone. And he ends up foreshadowing 2 revelations later on in the movie. This is what you're talking about how much they hint at stuff. When speculating on the state of humanity in the 40th century, he says they'd think you were something that fell out of a tree, which is foreshadowing human status as dumb beasts who are considered, like apes. What we think of as apes. He later claims that Landon went on the mission because he wanted glory. He says, quote, "There's a life-size bronze statue of you somewhere. It's probably turned green by now, and nobody can read the nameplate, but never let it be said we forget our heroes." This sarcastic reference is alluding to the Statue of Liberty showing up at the end of the movie. And when Landon plants a small American flag in the Forbidden Zone, it is ironic because they've been in the U.S. the entire time. Also, if you look at the little map that the apes are looking at about like what their territory looks like and everything, I guess if you study it closely, it looks like New York and New Jersey. And
oh, really?
Yeah. So because that was the question I had too, is I was like, where is the Statue of Liberty supposed to be? Like, how did it get to where it was?
Where are all the skyscrapers, right?
And all that stuff. And he's like, this used to be a lush paradise. And I'm like, New York was not a lush paradise last I looked, but
yeah,
maybe just Central Park.
Whom Norn.
But yeah, overall, I mean, this does just feel like an extended, detailed episode of The Twilight Zone. I think the twist is still super effective. Yeah, I know. And that's to me, that's to its benefit. Yes, I was looking for the opposite word of detriment. It is to its benefit because I love The Twilight Zone. Obviously, that's why I wore this shirt, for the connection.
Heck yeah.
And I still dig the hell out of it. I think just putting Charlton Heston as a human being and his personal beliefs aside.
It's funny how Charlton Heston you have to do that with, and then if you want to enjoy the Tim Burton one, you have to do the same thing with Mark Wahlberg and his dumbass.
If you want to enjoy the James Franco one, you got to put James Franco's entire personality.
Yeah. We'll say Men in Hollywood suck for the most part, but these are some pretty good movies.
It's just a good thing that Jonathan Majors wasn't in an Apes movie.
Let's not even go down that dusty road.
Let's not. And let's wrap this bad boy up. Anything else you want to say?
I think this movie is dope. It's probably one of the most influential and greatest sci-fi films ever made. I highly suggest if you haven't watched it, even though we've ruined it and society has ruined it.
I had to spoil it for me years before I ever watched it.
Same, but it's still worth the watch just to see where so many great sci-fi films got their footing and their ideas, and the ability to make something that seems so larger than life and not possible to be made in such an early year. It's fucking insanity.
Well, and also
completely agree.
Like pretty much all of Rod Serling's stuff, it holds up so well today because he, in everything that he did, all the Twilight Zone and this, he always had a message, and usually it had some sort of reflection of what was going on in the real world. And sadly, a lot of these issues that he was addressing in these episodes of the Twilight Zone and in Planet of the Apes are issues that are still here, if not worse, in modern day than they were in terms of the racism and the classism and all of this stuff. So really, I think watching this is honestly probably going to be more rewarding with that in mind, like going in and going, this is outside of the stretch of the apes taking over the planet. All of this is a pretty good reflection of what's going on in our real world, and I think that makes it even more horrifying because, like you joked earlier, it's like, yes, we are going to destroy ourselves. We all know that. We've all yeah. It's like we are going to destroy ourselves.
I just hope I get to live the entirety of my life before it happens.
Yeah, I haven't even been to the fucking Statue of Liberty, okay? I need to get there while it's still in one piece before we fucking blow it up.
Before that or a Cloverfield monster gets there. Yeah. You get your ass over there, dude. All right, cool. Well, that's going to wrap it up for Planet of the April.
Been a good-ass time.
Successful month, yeah.
I had a blast, yeah.
Yeah.
No stinkers outside of the bonus episodes. All right, so next month we are going to be doing animation. So we're stretching it, and
that's a good stretch.
We're watching anime movies. Anime, it's fucking brilliant, dude.
Okay, all right, okay. It writes itself.
Yeah,
and sometimes these episodes do. We are going to start off with Akira. Is that how you pronounce it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, good. So watch that if you haven't, and join us next week. And if you haven't, check out our bonus episode where we talked about Hell House LLC 2,
the Abaddon Hotel.
the Abaddon Hotel, and we're doing the alphabet roulette there. Next week we're talking about Infinity Pool.
Oh,
Crazy
yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Probably
so-
definitely far away the newest movie that we've talked about.
And
Yeah.
the newest in the Deadpool franchise.
Check us out and join us and have a good time. And we will see you next week. I have been Tone.
I've been John.
And get your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape. And Internet Darling Anthony.
That's a very long name. Thanks for checking this episode out.
Keep
See you
it
next time.
creepy.